let me say first that if we're looking at private sector salaries, and let's just take private sector salaries first, a lot depends on how you enter into any particular employment in the private sector and what it attracts. For example, look at banking. I mean, banking has always managed to pay well, and it's attracted everybody. It's attracted engineers, doctors, botanists, everybody is a banker because banking pays well. So invariably, what needs to happen is and let's take the press, let's take the media. The media has to be lucrative as a business in order to be able to afford the kinds of salaries that will make people comfortable. So there has to be a business, there has to be a business model for the media that works. And that business model is crucial. Obviously, those that are able to pay salaries not only have a good business model, but also have integrity as respecting the relationship with their staff, which is important. But I think that there are a lot of media organizations that simply are not making the kind of money that they ought to make and are probably not working on the right business model, so they're probably not making enough money. But then there are those who are making enough money, but just don't feel obliged to pay salaries. Unfortunately, the reason why anyone would remain in a job where he's not being paid month after month, there's no prospect of his being paid, and there is no pension or anything like that, is because he's found some other means of earning a living within that same structure. And usually those means are innovative. Those means are usually not the most honest possible means. So I think that first the media needs to get the right business model. People need to understand that anyone who goes into business, it needs to be a business, and people have to be paid. And the other thing also is that perhaps it's important that we prevent those who have that kind of authority over others, who have power over others, to deprive them of their salaries. It's possible that some kind of legislation might help with respect to that, namely a legislation that prevents you from owing salaries over a considerable period of time without filing for bankruptcy. In other places, if you are unable to pay salaries and unable to make your overhead expenses, pay your overhead, you are bankrupt. You are probably technically bankrupt. Now, something ought to happen, But we do have bankruptcy laws, but they need revision. Nobody, to the best of my knowledge, has been found to be bankrupt or filed for bankruptcy. So obviously we need to tweak things a little to make it easier for that to happen. But I think there must be consequence. If there is consequence for not paying salaries, if there's consequence for not doing what you ought to do, especially owing in any way, debts and all of that, if there is no consequence, a business consequence that will cost you, then people will continue to go about it that way. So I think in developing a business model, it's also important to understand that there must be a consequence if you don't make payments that you ought to make, if you are owing and you don't want to pay or you refuse to pay over a period of time. Education, you can define the scope of education. For instance, we just recently launched an educational policy reviewing what had happened in the past about 3-4 weeks ago or so. But the basic issue with education is that, especially education in Nigeria, is finding a clearer focus, just fine-tuning it such that our focus is entirely clear from primary school all the way up to universities. But even in so doing, the whole issue of teacher training and quality of teachers and all of that, and remunerating teachers in such a way that you attract good quality people. Now, these are issues that go beyond just drafting policy. So, for example, a state finds that several of its teachers are unable to pass some basic examination. Obviously, the reason is that these are not the best quality people, and And this is so across the country, and you'll find that, so many states have the same complaint. Many have not gone the whole hog of actually doing exams and all of that. But there is a problem with the quality of people. So we need to define the question of teacher education, how teacher education will be improved, how it will be resourced, who can teach and who should not be allowed to teach and all that. Part of what we're addressing in the new policy is teacher education. I think that's fundamental. Who teaches in primary school? What will you teach, and how should that be done? A lot of what we're seeing today, again, is just a manifestation of the kinds of problems that we've had with not clearly knowing what it is that needs to be done with these individuals. So those who end up teaching are people who have not very little else to do, or who don't have much of an alternative. Of course, there are people who teach because they believe that this is a calling, this is what they want to do. But many times you find that even in determining who gets into the College of Education, the points that you're required to have, if you are using a points basis, are usually much, much lower than what anybody else is supposed to have. And it should really be the reverse. But then remuneration is key. You will not attract quality people if you're unable to pay good money. Now, look at where the federal government is or state governments. The federal government says, okay, look, we're paying too much already in salaries. 70% of the entire budget is going to recurrent. Most of that is salaries. So we need to review that whole thing. We need to say, okay, look, not everybody can work in the public service, So creating opportunities elsewhere in business, etc., and all of that. But those who work in the public service, those who are teachers and all of that, we need to pay them better. We need to look at, how to pay them better. We need to educate them better. And all of that is in this policy. But again, they have to be resourced. You have a plan. We're looking at the moment at a 5-year plan. And we hope that we can get a lot of that stuff done. But for me, I think the most important thing is teacher education for a start. I think that will really help a great deal. Most of us who went to school here in this country, were taught by good teachers and were inspired by very, very good teachers. And, they were not necessarily the most knowledgeable people in the world, but they knew their stuff. And I think we're all the better for it. So I think teacher education really is key.
So we should wait between the next 3 to 5 years. Definitely expect your government to stay in place.
No, I didn't say 25 years. I said
no, 3 to 5 years. No, not 25. 3 to 5 years.
There's a program where we have, no. Every day is, we're at work every day. You're not waiting for 3 years. We're at work every single day. But I think the most important thing, and really, you must have a vision for how these things have to be done. And you're trying to turn, see, what you're dealing with is a vessel, a massive vessel. You're trying to turn it around. It's not a business. You don't just tweak it. No, you don't just turn it around. You have to be focused, and you have to get this done. What is more? I mean, take a look at Lagos, for example. Lagos has public education in Lagos is probably 1/3 of actual education. Everybody else is in private schools in Lagos. Lagos has almost 12,000 private schools, right? So the majority of those who are in school in Lagos are actually out of the public sector. So you need to deal with that issue as well, And again, because education is concurrent. So you are dealing with federal and you are dealing with state. It's not just, and then local governments. So it's not necessarily uniform policy. So what the federal government tries to do is to set an agenda and then say, okay, this is where we ought to be going, and the state should key into it, that kind of thing. So it's a nuanced problem. It's not just a matter of, if you were to say, for instance, so can you reform education by next year? Of course not. We can't, because we're dealing with subnationals as well. We are dealing with local governments as well. We are dealing with primary education, private education. Today, there are almost, with the last 6 private universities, almost 56 or 58 private universities. So there,
So do we have a scoop today then that the policy of government has changed and we're expecting to see the implementation of that policy from today? Or
But this is the problem with the press. This is the problem with the press. You are looking for easy. You are looking for captions. You are looking for headlines. That's not the issue.
No,
This is a much more nuanced problem. This is a problem that's much more technical. So if you were just to make a headline today, how would that affect anything? How would that change anything? We are dealing with a problem. You are not looking for a simple. You are looking for a simple solution. So we just say, oh, by next year everything will be well.
No, Your Excellency, we're saying, can we say that as of today, something is starting, or at least what you said?
Of course,
yes.
of course.
Okay,
And
that's good.
I
That's
pointed
what
out
we
that we actually were looking at the education, the education policy. And that was about 3 weeks ago. The education policy was actually approved by the Federal Executive Council.